Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Relationship Atlas podcast. I'm your host, Coach Atlas. I'm a relationship coach helping people build safe, secure, stable, and successful long term relationships. And to do that today, we are going to discuss one of the attachment styles, specifically the anxious style of attachment. Now, attachment styles are a form of behavior. So they are not necessarily who we are because they don't show up the same across the board in all of our relationships. They tend to show up more aggressively or more assertively in our secure base relationships or our safe haven relationships, meaning your primary caregiver was the one that was responsible for creating secure attachment between the two of you. How your needs were responded to growing up from this primary caregiver now will likely reflect how you respond to your adult partner's response to your needs in the relationship. So it's a primary space, it's the primary source that you look for. And so when we have it in a parent, we as adults transfer that responsibility to our partner. Now, before we really dive in, I just want to share with you the goal for today, which is to really describe in detail what anxious attachment style is, what it looks like in relationship, how it can show up when it gets the better of us, and then offer you a couple of different ways to be able to approach your anxious attachment style with the intent on evolving, growing, and becoming more of a secure home base, both for yourself and for your relationship. Now, before we begin, I'd like to just take a deep breath with you to settle into the space together. So, when you're ready, deep inhale in through the nose, long exhale out the mouth. See if we can lengthen that a little bit one more time. Beautiful. Now we're dropped in and ready. Let's talk. So, anxious attachment style is a form of insecure attachment. So there is secure attachment, there is insecure attachment. And in the insecure section, there is anxious attachment, there is avoidant attachment, and then there's a more rare attachment style which combines both insecure styles, which is anxious and avoidant, can be also called fearful, and so on. So the anxious attachment style is a representation of how our needs were responded to growing up by our primary caregiver. Now, these results that we have, these outcomes of attachment styles, are built off a study done called The Strange Situation. And The Strange Situation was a study done on children where anywhere around the age of 1, give or take, these children were put in this strange situation. Their mother would bring them into a strange new room that was full of toys. After a couple of minutes of engaging with the room, engaging with the toys, they would prompt the mother to leave the room. The mother would leave the room, not for too long, just to simply challenge the child, right? And so, how the child responded to the mother leaving the room was how they became aware of these different styles of attachment. So the anxious attachment style would get visibly upset, might crawl towards the door, is looking for the parent to return, is scared, is worried, is naturally fearful, right, and crying and upset. Then after a moment, the parent returns to the room, and the child will be consoled by the parent for comfort. But what we're looking for is, can the child start to re-engage again with the room? Or does the child continue to be upset and avoid any sort of initiation on what's happening in the room, right? Does that rupture of closeness with the mother leaving the room Does that cause enough stress in the body for the child to no longer feel safe in the room, to no longer feel comfortable exploring, and now is solely and fully dependent on being as close as possible to their parent? And so that is what we determined through the study that created an anxious attachment style. Secure attachment style, for reference, still got upset when the parent left the room, but when the parent returned, the child was quicker to be able to start to engage with the room again and was able to detach from parent in a more productive and efficient manner. A lot of times, the more secure children were almost immediate. Once they were consoled, once that physical closeness and connection was built again, after a couple of seconds, that child was immediately settled and was able to then point out a toy or want the parent to come with them to engage with something to play with. The avoidant style, for reference, is the child may not actually be emotionally disrupted whatsoever by the parent leaving the room. They may continue going on playing. They may go quiet, but they don't necessarily look at an upset or reach for closeness. They might simply just stay in the same state that they were. And then when the parent returns, there isn't necessarily a desire or acknowledgement for more closeness or intimacy. It is simply, you're here or you're not here. The interesting part about that was the baby, the child, they've done studies that show that the child in the avoidance stage, although isn't responding outwardly or expressing outwardly, is just as stressed internally as the anxious, as the secure. And so it's still bothered. The system is still upset. The system is still triggered, but the response to that experience is different than the other two styles of attachment. So, anxiously attached craves that safe haven, just like a secure home base, wants mother to return, but once that primary caregiver returns, could be the father as well, it then struggles to feel safe enough to detach again based on that rupture. So then it then lends to close, 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 close. All I can be is close to you because now it no longer feels safe. Now, in adults, right, you can start to maybe paint a picture of how this shows up either in relationships you've been a part of or maybe your own behavior. And so, what we're going to do now is talk a little bit about how this shows up as adults. And this is going to come from the book Attached. It's an incredible book that gives very, very tangible, approachable insight to our attachment styles and breaks down the theory behind all of it very well. And so it gives incredible detail in respect of these insecure and secure attachment styles. So anxious goes through a lot of mental turmoil. And so it can start to say things like, that's it. I knew you were going to leave me. I'll never find anybody. I knew that this was too good to be true. I have to talk to or see them right now. I knew something would go wrong. Nothing ever works out for me. They are so amazing. Why would they want to be with me? You can start to hear a bit of a theme here in the thought process, right? Which is going to lead to a specific kind of emotion, possibly anxious, right? I know for me, my attachment style historically has been anxious. And so I feel anxious. That's how I started to recognize that experience. But it can also be frustrated, right? It can also be resentful, depressed, jealous, restless is a one that comes up a lot for me. Rejected is a fascinating one, very common. Unloved and lonely, misunderstood, and so on. And so going through these thought experiences can start to lead to what's called protest behavior. And protest behavior is our attempt at getting our needs met by protesting for them because we are unaware of what we're looking for in the first place. So, a massive component of being anxiously attached or avoidant attached in this insecure area is an inability to communicate our needs. And so, what we then do is we start to exhibit protest behavior. We start protesting for closeness. We start protesting for intimacy. So, some of the ways that we go about protesting as an anxious attachment style is examples of excessive attempts to establish connection, right? So we're texting constantly, maybe back to back or triple texts, right? Maybe really long paragraphs that take a lot to really digest. We're calling a lot to get attention, to get our needs met, right? We don't really know what we need in that moment, but we know that we need closeness. And so we reach for it by blitz texting or blitz phone calling. Emailing is a big one. It's come up a couple of times in my coaching clients is there'll become a situation where somebody gets blocked or is disconnected from, and so they'll reach to emailing to try to connect. They'll go as far as, that kind of digital platform. And then another example of excessive attempts to establish connection is loitering, meaning going out of your way to be in the space they will be in. An example is a workplace. And this one was difficult for me to read because I've done that in my past. I have loitered at a workplace in an attempt to be close. And it was more during times of stress or lack of connection or quiet or silence. And my system, little did I know at the time, could not handle this experience. I didn't know what to do with this. So I had convinced myself that it would be okay of me to go down to said workplace and be in that environment to sustain some sense of closeness, even if it was just an acknowledgement of my presence there. And so, as I go through this, I just want to preface as I move forward that this is simply a part of you that feels unsafe and is craving or needing closeness and intimacy. And so this isn't something to shame ourselves for or beat ourselves up for. We can feel a healthy amount of guilt for sure, and that can be very motivating, but we don't need to start down the train of I'm such a bad person. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't believe I do this shit. Why can't I just be different? Because all of that language and verbiage not only makes us feel like garbage, but it's disempowering. It doesn't actually create the pathways to change. It takes us down deeper and darker into our own rabbit hole. And so, what we want to start to do here is simply just acknowledge the reality as it is in this moment. So, if you are currently texting aggressively or over the top in ways that you probably know aren't coming from something you have a desire to do, but it's more of I need to, then that's okay. The point of this process is to start to acknowledge and take ownership for what's alive for us so that we can start to create the habits and the systems and find the tools necessary for change so we can get closer to a secure attachment. The next one would be withdrawing. So this would be a protest behavior for our anxious attachment style, withdrawing. And that might sound counterintuitive because withdrawing is a tendency of the avoidant. The avoidant withdraws themselves from the space. And the difference is an avoidantly attached person or a person who has avoidant attachment behaviors will withdraw because they want to be away, because they don't want to be close. They don't want that intimacy. They actually want to get away from it. But an anxiously attached person or somebody who has anxious attachment tendencies withdraws in hopes of that withdrawal being noticed and acknowledged. It's actually a form of trying to get that closeness back in and back into connection. So they might go quiet or they might shut down or stonewall in hopes that that person that they're with acknowledges that behavior or checks in or wants to help or wants to save or wants to fix. So it's actually a form of trying to get connected. Now, if you're curious, what am I anxious or am I avoidant? that one may be a very helpful distinguishing factor on what happens when you do withdraw or when you do shut down. Are you looking for them to come closer, or are you looking for them to stop and for you to be able to separate completely? Here's another way to know withdrawal is your habit is if you withdraw and they don't give you what you're looking for, do you push farther or harder? Do you push and push? Hey, don't, I don't want it, I don't want it. Or when they don't give it to you, do you find yourself explosive towards them, meaning possibly you threaten to leave or you act very hostile, right? You get very frustrated that they didn't come closer or they didn't ask you how you are or they didn't bother to care. All of these ways that you're still trying to get them to be closer. That can be a helpful distinguishing factor between is this an anxiously attached protest behavior or is this avoidant? What am I trying to look for right now? What is my need? Right? Going back to where these generally come from and how we know that we're having difficulty is because we're behaving in ways that are unclear with what our need is, which is possibly some space right now or possibly some closeness right now, which we're going to get to closer to the end. So, excessive attempts to reestablish connection, withdrawing, keeping score. We all know these dynamics and keeping score to be able to hopefully reestablish some sort of connection. Acting hostile is one that we already referenced, right? I'm going to act big, explosive, and it's going to seem like I want to push you away, when in reality, what I'm hoping for is it keeps you here. I may actually create fights unknowingly or create tension and conflict unknowingly as a form of getting that closeness. Because what an anxiously attached person tends to do is do anything at all costs to establish that connection, to maintain it, to make sure that it is not gone fully or ruptured completely. Threatening to leave is a very common one of the anxious attachment, right? It is not often followed by an actual leaving because that is completely besides the point of what they really want. Threatening to leave is a unknown and unconscious way of attempting to establish and maintain connection. My hope when I tell you maybe I should just go or you know what this isn't for me is that you fight for me, is that you come closer, is that you maybe give in and start loving me or give in and dissolve this argument or this fight. My threat is in actual hopes of you coming here. It's not actually something that I believe I will do, nor is it something that I've ever really followed through on, because I'm looking for connection. I'm not looking to actually rupture it, but this is my protest behavior. This is what I believe is going to get me there. The last two is acting busy or unapproachable. And again, this is where we can get pretty distinctive on the differences between anxious and avoidant. And anxious will act busy or unapproachable in hopes that the partner will acknowledge them and check in and want to be close. Whereas an avoidant may act busy or unapproachable so that they are, in fact, left alone. The last one is creating jealousy. So, telling a story to their partner about somebody that hit on them in attempts to make them feel more loving or show up differently or to say, hey, there are other fish in the sea that want me, prove that you want me more in an attempt to establish this connection. Now, these are all protest behavior examples. This is not a black and white conversation. All this is meant to do, all attachment theory is ever meant to do, especially as adults, is to help us understand ourselves on a deeper level, help us see ourselves more clearly so that we can name it, to tame it, to evolve through it, right? Going through the motion of reaching secure attachment so that we can have what we are all craving, which is a healthy, stable, safe, successful long term relationship. So, this is not to put in your identity box, right? You are not now all of a sudden stamped as an anxiously attached person. The language we want to try to use for ourselves is I have tendencies of the anxious attachment style system. Right? It's just a system, it's a study done, it is a form of understanding ourselves, but it is not who we are because what we do is not who we are. Right? When I wave my hand, that is not who I am. That is what I am doing. I am somebody separate from me waving my hand. So same goes for our attachment styles, is this is a behavior we have, and that allows us to grasp the concept that a behavior can be changed. A behavior can be molded and a behavior can be shifted. So now that we have a better understanding of our anxious attachment style, we have a little bit of a better understanding of how it shows up when it takes over. Now, what we want to better understand is how do we start to move towards secure attachment? Now, for an anxiously attached person, it's important to understand that you're on the precipice of secure attachment based on the fact that what you are looking for is closeness and intimacy. The difference is that there may be a disconnect with your belief that you deserve it, that it will be consistent, and that it will always be readily available as your safe haven. And so your behavior responds differently. A securely attached person also craves intimacy and closeness, but believes that it is always accessible and that it won't be under threat or siege at all times. They have that sense of being with self, knowing their sense of self or their self esteem is high and everything is in essentially a safe environment. Again, they're still upset when disconnection or rupture happens, but it doesn't hijack them versus the anxiously attached behaviors tend to hijack. Right? You think about the person who is obsessed with their relationship. It's all they talk about, it's all they think about. It's something that they can't disconnect from, right? Maybe that's you or maybe that's somebody that you know, right? They're constantly worried about, am I enough? Am I continuing to be loved? Are they finding somebody else right now? Is this going to last forever? I really hope that I never have to find somebody else. This is my person. They may actually overlook tendencies or red flags because this person is offering them just enough connection, even if it's through fights, to maintain that sense of that person's still going to be here. That's my safe haven still. Safe haven of connection. Maybe not safe haven of respect, safe haven of love, but just simply them being there can be enough to satisfy that need. So now we move into a couple examples of shifting towards secure attachment. Now, from my history and my experience of learning about these and trying to shift towards secure attachment, what I have noticed about my journey is that it has taken some time because what I'm learning to do is operate with a new nervous system. I'm learning to create safety in my system, both through my own work and through the power of relational healing. Now, I know for a fact that no matter how much work I've done to work on my own attachment style and move to secure, when I enter back into relationship, a lot of that work is basically null and void because the healing happens through that person, through the power of actual physical interaction and actual physical proximity. And so when I go through this work, I want to encourage you to know that a lot of our success in our relationship and moving to a securely attached partnership has been built off the back of relational healing, not individual healing. Yes, we learned a lot, and yes, we were able to gain insight, but the way that our systems operated and the way that they felt was only made possible to how they feel now through the power of being seen, being witnessed, being held, and having that consistent relational behavior together in our partnership. So, no matter what is offered here, I encourage you to know that it is crucial to move through this through partnership, which is where your team dynamic comes in. So I'll start with one of the first things that I did to start, quote unquote, healing my anxious attachment style, or rather moving through my system differently and taking back control. One was, well, the first part was actually getting the information here that I knew I resonated with the anxious attachment tendencies. So then what we did as a partnership was we agreed to start trying our best to lead with, hey, I'm noticing I'm feeling anxious right now. Is everything okay? We led with this heightened sense of self ownership and self advocacy. I'm advocating for myself right now, and I'm taking ownership around what I'm experiencing. I'm not blaming you. I'm not manipulating you. I'm not hijacked. I'm going to stay in control here, but I'm not going to pretend the feeling doesn't exist. I'm going to lean into the feeling by honoring it and noticing I am feeling very anxious right now. Is everything okay here? I'm feeling anxious right now. I actually don't need anything from you. I just need to name it. I am feeling, or I am noticing my anxious attachment tendencies showing up right now. And I'm hoping we can talk about it quickly. Do you have a second? We led with that ownership so that our partner wasn't barraged, wasn't attacked, wasn't berated, and wasn't coerced into offering something that we didn't even know we needed ourselves. So we started to really own it at a high level. And that helped change a lot, both for our dynamic because we were more consistently in control, but also, again, for our nervous system. When I started bringing my own attention to my own experience, it put a flashlight on it instead of it hiding in the dark. And I was able to witness a little bit more of that experience, which then I offered to my partner to also witness. And her witnessing me without rejecting or judging, without worse consequences, I was able to recognize that this part of me is safe and this part of me is okay. And it took away a lot of the power that it used to have over me. And it opened up a new opportunity for me to recognize it's okay that I feel this. And the source of contact here is okay with that part of me, that is accepting of that part of me. And that's the power of relational healing. That's settled my system intensely over time. So again, we led with how we're feeling, which allowed us to start getting clarity. This is part two of what we need. So as we got better at it, we realized, hey, listen, I'm noticing I'm anxious right now. Can I get a hug? Because what we noticed is we wanted closeness. We just didn't know it behind the work. And so once we became more aware and back in control, we started to be able to connect with the need. And so we can even go on the other side and say, hey, listen, I'm noticing that I'm overloaded and that I'm feeling avoidant. I need to go take 5 minutes to myself. Great. The power of this ownership and then anticipating and acknowledging the need is so crucial because it takes away any blame on the partner, because the partner is simply the mirror, right? The behavior that I have isn't necessarily the cause of what you're experiencing. The behavior is simply a mirror to something you need. And you get to then acknowledge that need, and I get to witness you in it and honor it, right? Because we're in the power of relationship here. We're in the power of co relationing, co partnership. This is something we do together. And so the better you are, and the more grounded you are, and the more secure you are, the better our relationship. So it is my duty and my responsibility to be held responsible for supporting you in your own well being. That's what we offer our partner, and that's what they offer us back. So hey, I'm noticing I'm really anxious right now. Do you think we could just like lay here for a couple of minutes together? Just be close, right? And it's okay to start to analyze it from needs or in the form of needs because we have them. And I think a lot of the time, anxiously attached people get frustrated that they have needs in the first place. And I think that that frustration might come simply because those needs have never been clear and they've always been hijacked. They've been a part of a hijacked experience, which means they were probably explosive. They were probably very assertive or aggressive. They weren't clear requests. They might have been very muddy or very frustrated or very manipulative. And so they don't feel good about the fact that these needs exist because of how they've always been expressed and how they've been responded to. Because it's rare that somebody feels good about being demanded or manipulated into giving them what they need. And so, what we're doing here is taking back the control and saying, no, these needs are okay, but my delivery and my clarity just needs some work. Hey, do you think I could get a hug right now? I can't imagine many partners saying no, right? But there will be moments where that partner may not be in that space, and that's okay. Well, at least what we've done is acknowledged what we need and we've owned it. And best case scenario is that partner says, hey, listen, I would love to. I'm noticing I'm overloaded right now. Give me a couple minutes. And then I think that we'll be in a better space, or I'll be in a better space, and I'll be able to offer you what you need. Right? Coming back to the conversation of I'm in this with you, even though in this very second I'm not. I'm feeling a little distant. I'm feeling like this might overload me, but I want to be here with you. I want to support you with this because I give a shit about you. I'm going to come right back and I'm going to make sure I give this and I'm going to offer this and I'm going to provide this. I'm going to be available to this. I'm going to be responsive to this. Asking for needs with clarity, right? Starting to own the reality that it's okay we have needs. Another way that I supported myself with this work was I really just started to give myself some more grace because I started to really understand that there was a little version of me that struggled. No shame, no blame, no guilt. It's just the reality of the situation that I was looking for something and I didn't think it'd be consistent, and so I started to have a lot of protest behavior to get it. I started to really fight for it, and it may not have been available in the ways that I needed it, and rather in the ways that little me needed it, the way he needed it. And so I started giving some grace and compassion for my adult self through being there for little me. Because the protest behavior is really just the inner child version of me begging to get what he never got. And he's now projecting that onto this partner that I'm with now. He's still fighting for it. And so bearing witness to that reality of wow, like it's just a little kid, you know? Would I tell a little kid, "Hey, stop being so stupid. Why do you behave that way? That's ridiculous. Can you shut up? Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. You're fine." Right? I wouldn't talk to a kid that way. And so I stopped talking to my inner child that way. And it helped bridge a gap between the two of us that created more grace and compassion and more space to be upset and to be bothered and to be anxious, knowing that I'm an adult and I'm going to care for this little version of me in the ways that he needs, and we're going to be able to make progress together. The last part or the last component that really helped the dynamic and helped me better understand my attachment style and also helped me quote unquote heal it or rather make progress towards secure attachment was my partner. And this is an incredible reminder, a powerful reminder, a necessary reminder that, again, no matter how much self work I did, it still showed up in relation to my partner. And it still was difficult. It didn't just magically go away. And it was through the power of relational healing that I was really able to make progress there, right? Being witnessed in my struggle, being seen in my anxiety, being held in the process of change and the process of growth, or not being judged, ridiculed, rejected, battered down for having the experiences that I was having. We've done such a great job at trying to hold each other in the experience in order to support, in order to help the healing process, in order to empower that person, right? If that space doesn't exist, then that part of us, that anxious attached part of us, is going to activate even further. So if you're with somebody that you are pretty confident has an anxious attachment style, I need you to know that you play a massive part in this process. You are an integral key to the healing process of that person. And a lot of people will say, well, it's not my responsibility. And I will tell you that's bullshit. Because if you are committed to this person, if you are committed to the relationship and everything that comes with it, if you are on board with the longevity, the long haul, the distance, if you're committed to that, then it is in your best interest to support your partner in their evolution. It is in your best interest to be a pillar of support. Because when you are not that, you advocate for stunted growth. You are advocating for backwards momentum. You are advocating for stop signs. You are advocating in the direction that I don't actually think you want to go. So if you actually crave a better relationship, if you actually crave and desire your partner to feel good, to be happy, if you actually crave that, then what you will take on is the necessary work to support them in their healing and their development and their evolution in the same way that I'm going to go out on a limb and assume you crave from them. Secure attachment is built together if it's not already there. Right? And this is the journey that we take with our partner, with the person we're committed to. I hold all of you and all the shit that you bring, and you hold all of me and all the shit I bring. And together, we slowly free ourselves through our co-partnership, through our relationship. We slowly help each other shed some of that mud, enter into a little bit more freedom of movement. The hope is that over time, together, through being available and responsive, that you get to that secure place together where things really just work, that they're smooth, that they're aligned, not conflict free, but conflict managed well, repaired well. And I think a lot of the conversation, and I see this often, and I'll finish with this, there are a lot of relationships around me right now that are ending. And I would start to ask the question for those of you that are in that scenario, if you're listening to this, if your relationship recently ended, I would challenge you to really ask the question, did you do what it takes, or did you hide from your own necessary change, evolution, and actions? And that's not to guilt or shame you. It's to start facing the reality that a lot of us are ending relationships quicker than they need to. We're not being relational anymore. We're being individualistic. We're being incredibly selfish. And I think there was a movement somewhere in there around advocating for our own needs. And I think it was really powerful, and I'm all here for it. That's not to be confused with the fact that we need to advocate for our own needs. But when the conversations came about, like protect my peace, I think we started to take it too far, because we said, if you are not my peace, or if this isn't peace, I'm out, because I'll do anything to protect my peace. And we stopped learning. We stopped relating. We stopped learning how to relate, because we were so busy separating ourselves from people that were difficult, from situations that were difficult, from situations that were challenging. And yes, that is necessary sometimes, but not all the time. Because in the ease, we learn nothing. In the ease, we do not grow. So if you are in a relationship right now and you are curious to understand more about what it takes, what are the skills necessary, how do we make relationships work, how do we create security, how do we create stability, consistency together, how do we do that? If that is a question that you have right now, then I highly encourage you to reach out and book a call with me. not because you're incapable, but simply because there are skill sets that we just don't have, that a lot of us do not have, because we're continuously fed this narrative that we just do it alone, that we don't need people. Community is pointless. Support isn't necessary. Just read a book and deal with it. And yes, knowledge can be helpful, but there is a difference between reading a book and having somebody hold you accountable to what you're reading and actually putting that shit into practice. There is a difference when you are having to share with somebody in front of you that you did not behave in the ways that you wanted to, and owning that and being witnessed by somebody like myself who gives a shit about the development, about the stability, about the security of you as a person and of your relationship. Judgment free. There's a difference in being seen in your behaviors, being seen in your change, being seen in your faults and your failings and your shortcomings. Because that is the relational healing that it's going to require in order for these things to actually start changing. So if that's you, I can't wait to talk. Otherwise, this has been a podcast about anxious attachment style. I hope there was some value in it. If there was for you, I would love if you could subscribe to the podcast and give it a rating. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what you think and what pieces of this specifically resonated with you. And look out for the next episode. We're going to talk about avoidant attachment style. And then following that episode, we'll talk about secure attachment style. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you being here. I'll see you in the next episode.